Okay, the final balance of everything. I've gone back to the eyes and I've taken that one layer that we had of her left eye, make it larger, and I've thrown it away because I'm going to do that in this very last section, in this final section, as I'm going to do a couple of other things. Now, there are a couple of things we should be aware of. The CMYK values of her face. So if we get the eyedropper sampler tool and we put a sample, say, on her forehead and on her cheek, and we've got the CMYK values. And incidentally, if these are RGB, you just need to click on the eyedropper and select whatever area you'd like. We're going to work with CMYK numbers. And here are the numbers that you want to generally look at. Magenta and yellow should be fairly close. Magenta slightly higher for Caucasian skin, yellow slightly higher for Asian skin. And cyan should be about 25%, 30% at a push of those numbers. Cyan will be higher for African American. Now, those numbers are general numbers. This is why the preview is so important, because I look at those numbers just to give me a check and make sure my eyes aren't deceiving me, and then I look back at the image to make sure that I'm getting what I'm looking for. So if I look here, I'm seeing that magenta is in fact a little bit higher, and the cyan number is generally where I wanted to see it. So I would go under View, under Extras, and I could turn those off so they're not part of the equation, so they don't get in my way. Now, a little trick here, and I'm not sure I'd want to do this with her because she doesn't really need any tanning, but to give her a little bit of a tan, you can let me just open up my info palette, adjustments, black and white adjustment layer, put in luminosity blend mode, brings us right back to ground zero, and I'm going to call this tan or tanning. Now with this, if I bring the reds and I darken the reds and I darken the yellows, I can really get her skin to go kind of almost dirty looking. Very, very edgy and very aggressive. But the fact that I can add this color tone and make her skin look a little bit darker can be very favorable. Now, that said, what I want to do now is make sure I go through her face and I look at any issues that I might want to just do as a final cleanup before I match anything. Now, I noticed a couple things. One thing is her nose and the tone of her nose. So if I tap the Q key and I get a brush, and I get a little bit bigger brush, and I get her nose. Tap the Q key, and here I'm going to get, under the adjustments, I'm going to get a curve. And I'm going to go into the red channel. Now, if I pull the red out, I start to introduce cyan. If I add red, I get more red. Maybe I need a little bit of yellow or blue just to get her to match. Now we're talking like minor points here. My input point was 123. My output point was 124. So minor, but that's a way that you can handle issues like that. So this is going to be nose color, and from here now we're going to do some final cleanup. So here we get another layer, and I'm going to call this final retouch. And on that layer, I'm going to get my heel brush, and we'll zoom right in real close, and make sure that we handle all the areas that we want to handle, like on her lips, like these little areas here. Get a smaller brush, and control click, and make sure that I've got this set up the way I want it. Option click, handle those areas, option click in here, and I'm going through and I'm just cleaning up these small little areas that may or may not have bothered me during the regular retouch. But I'm getting in really close to handle all the fine details. Because inevitably what happens is if you go and you print this and you print it large because you think it's really going to look dynamite, you don't want to be surprised when you find you've printed it 20 by 30 that you've got a hair down here that you wish you had taken care of. So better to do that now, and better to address these small issues now rather than later. So we just go through her face and we're just really just handling these small areas as needed. And I won't bore you with going through her entire face. We'll just hit some of the major issues so you can get the idea of what I'm talking about. But you definitely want to go through and handle some of these issues before you finalize things. The worst thing you can do is deliver this to the printer or to your client and then realize that there are some subtle things that you would have liked to had the opportunity to retouch. And now you realize you do have the opportunity, you just have to make the time to do that. So you can see all of the small areas in here that require a little bit of retouching. And we're just building this in the very top of everything. This is really kind of against workflow, but at the very end of all this, this is a requirement because there are going to be areas that we just missed along the way. And we want to make sure we've got most of those covered. So I'll just go through a couple more of these little areas here. And she'll look a lot nicer. Her skin complexion will look a lot more fine, but you still see we've got texture built in. We've got pores. We've got the peach fuzz of the hair. We've got a lot of things that we want built back in that are built back in. So now we're looking back at this. And the final thing that I would like to mention will be in the last video. It'll be a little extra because in this video, or for this particular model, I don't see that her hands or her arms are so different that I'd want to address them. But sometimes you'll have a hand up in someone's face or an arm in the picture that is distinctly different texture, and well, not so much texture but tone to the face, either because of makeup or because of tanning issues or something like that, and you want to match those. So I'm going to show you a method to help match those here in extra movies.